Kia ora koutou, everyone. I'm Samantha Morris, a water engineer and project manager at Oricon here in Otatahi. And you're all in for an absolute treat for today. And I'm so grateful to be your MC for today's session, Delivering Digitally. We are in a unique position to digitise the New Zealand infrastructure sector, to improve efficiency delivering projects, to better plan for maintenance and future infrastructure renewals, and most importantly, our ability to respond to natural disasters. Digital twins have been around for a while now, and as we work towards scaling these models through common data standards, we still have a lot of work to do to realise the full potential of what digital technology can provide to our sector. To speak to these opportunities both above and below ground, we will soon welcome overseas and domestic thought leaders in this session, Delivering Digitally. I would also like to remind you that if you'd like to participate in the Q&A part of this session, you'll need to select slide B on Slido. Slido can be accessed through the Backstage app or by inputting #BuildingNations on slido.com. We are lucky to first be joined here by Graham Newton, Chief Executive Officer of Cross River Rail, Brisbane's major new rail link, which is currently under construction. Graham Newton has led the Cross River Rail Delivery Authority as its Chief Executive Officer since 2017. Cross River Rail is Queensland's largest single infrastructure project and will transform the way people travel across the whole of southeast Queensland. It will increase rail network capacity, act as a catalyst for future rail improvements, and drive urban renewal at major station locations. And it has already played an important role in securing Brisbane the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. Prior to taking on this helm of Cross River Rail Delivery Authority, Graham has had extensive senior executive experience leading large and complex, high-profile, multi-billion-dollar infrastructure projects, both within the private and public sector. Now let's all welcome Graham.
Thank you. Kia ora, everyone. Great to be here. Now, the challenge I've got is I'm competing against 3 mayors and a post-lunch malaise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some action going here. I told my team when I saw the time when I'm speaking, day 2, afternoon, competing against mayors, we've got to come up with something colourful and entertaining. So we've got a bunch of things to get through, a lot of content to show you, but I think you'll find it quite interesting because it's really a passion project of mine. So let's get into it. First of all, just so you understand the project itself, Cross River Rail, it's basically a duplication of the existing rail network, but through a tunnel underneath the river. Brisbane River is quite a large river. It rivals the Thames, if you like. I mean, it's several hundred metres wide. It's tens of metres deep, and it's quite a difficult one. So getting a crossing there is a real challenge. The only crossing of the river is in a bridge, which then has a limited capacity of 24 trains per hour. So it's not just the tunnel though we're doing stabling yards, we're doing 4 new underground stations, we're doing 8 upgraded stations with 2 new stations, 3 stations on the Gold Coast and a bunch of stabling yards. And on top of all of that, we're doing a new signalling system, so ETCS with ATO and platform screen doors. So challenging. This is a bit of an old photo, but gives you an idea of the size and scale of the tunnels. And the tunnels are now in the process of being fitted out. This is one of our stations. Often referred to as Space Station Albert Street because of the struts, but it's the deepest hole ever dug in Brisbane, so it's 50+ metres in depth down because we had to get below all the footings of all of the buildings and all of the sewer and services. This is inside one of the stations. You can see the mezzanine in place. That slot there is where the escalators will go, but you can start to see it starting to take shape. Additionally, we're doing these station upgrades across the network, and the whole purpose of that is a lot of these stations haven't really had a major upgrade. They were built in the late 1800s and they still have timber bridges, so accessibility is just not on at those stations. So you can see we're putting in lifts there. We're also doing stabling yards, 2 new stabling yards, and as I mentioned, a signalling system. This presentation isn't about the project per se, it's actually about what we're doing in the context of digitising it. Now, where do we come from? We came up with this concept called Project DNA. DNA, digital network approach. I think we come up with the title DNA and then work the words back into it just to sort of make it sound funky. But essentially, what we're trying to do is enable a digital twin at the start, and it's something we're really sort of focused on. So, you know, obviously there's those different Ds that you look up the slide chart there, but, you know, we start with 3D, 4D you start adding time, 5D you start adding costs and time, 6D you start getting performance around there, and obviously 7D is the nirvana where you actually can apply it in operations and how you're going to actually operate the infrastructure at the end of the day. Now, where did this sort of come from? And the Queensland government had a policy around digital twins and was sort of shaping it out. What I saw was, this is back in 2016, 17, I saw the opportunity where we were going to make a major investment in this piece of infrastructure. If we start to specify it up front, we don't end up with the designs stuck in the bottom drawer of the contractor, because they all get developed in a digital form, in a BIM format, but unless you specify that it's your IP and that they provide it to you, you don't end up with that content. So we went through this whole process saying, well, how do we do it where we don't end up with a digital version, which is the engineering version, and then a visual version, which is used for stakeholders? What I wanted to do was have a completely federated, connected model where the one model was used for absolutely everything, and that's what we're going to talk about today. What really brought it home, though, was a conversation we had very early in the piece in 2017 with the team from Crossrail. They said that one thing that they regretted was that they didn't get onto this earlier. They looked at the way in which they went about it. They spent almost a year trying to recapture that information. And I said to them, why? Like, what happened? Why didn't you get onto it earlier? And they said, well, the main problem we didn't do was specify a single approach, as in the single basis under which it would come to us, and have it written into the contract that they must provide it to us because it's our IP. Now, from the contractor's perspective, there's no effort involved because they're generating it anyway. So to put it into a common environment is pretty straightforward, and I'll talk about that in a sec. So what is it? What is it that we're talking about? And I guess this little sequence of slides explains how we went about it, and then I'll show you the product afterwards. So we started off with this concept of a common data environment. Simple, straightforward. Everybody's aware of that type of concept, a lot harder to put in place. And that's where that contract approach took, where we specified the form in which they had to provide it to us, and we specified the way in which it would be provided to us, and in what scale and what frequency and so forth. You then overlay BIM on top of that. So you say, well, you need to provide us your BIM files into this common data environment. Then we overlaid a geospatial layer. So the state government has quite a lot of geospatial, but where it wasn't there, we worked with other agencies to get some LiDAR and so forth done. So we're starting to bring this together into this common data environment. Then we looked at the Viz model, and this was something that sort of came from the conversation with Crossrail, where they said, we wished we'd actually used a gaming engine, an Xbox type gaming engine to produce our output. And we went, well, that's interesting. When we brought the technology providers together into a room and we described what we wanted, they all looked at us and said, well, no one can offer you that. And, he does this and she does that and he does that. And we said, well, look, you guys need to all go away and come back back as consortia and put a proposal to us on how you're going to do it. And then I guess the final one was the system and information model management. So this is basically how you use it and how you apply it, and then what you can use it for into the future. So this is the nub of it. So have this image in the back of your head as we go through, because I'm going to touch on each one of these. So starting off with the BIM. So we all know BIM. You've seen BIM plenty of times. One thing you don't see with this is you can see the blue railway tunnel that's there. You can see the buildings that are animated around it. What you can't see is here we're actually going underneath the river, 50 metres below ground, going underneath Kangaroo Point Cliffs, and then coming across to Woolloongabba, and you can sort of basically see the buildings around there. So BIM has a certain ability, shows you spatially an association where things are at, but it's only really for the technical mind. BIM has come a long way though, so technology is now evolving where you can go from a really wiry looking diagram to something that's a bit more usable, and we've been using it in a way where you can actually trace. So the different colours mean different stages of development, work complete and so forth. We started applying timing to it, and then you can start to overlay skins on top of them to sort of get a bit of a feel what the thing's going to look like at the end of the day. And here's one there where you can actually do cross sections and get into different parts, different colours tell you different stages of different project, and you can get a pretty good feel of where things are at. I just remind you, what I'm presenting here is not just images. This is taken straight out of our common data environment, all right? So this is what has been provided to us by our contractors on a regular basis. So it comes out of that sort of federated model. We started out with tens of thousands. Now we're up to millions, as you can see there, 14 million different pieces there. And we've got this update frequency of as frequently as 4 hours, but in some cases it's actually real time. So what we can do then is zoom in and find a particular pump with a particular handle, and this handle in particular has 80 different characteristics with 200 different data sequences and frequency stuff that's sort of part of that particular pump handle. That's just the handle itself. So you're starting to tag all of this data to the different parts of the model. So going forward, you can see BIM is evolving in the visualization. You can see things are getting better. You don't need to use your imagination as well. You don't need to be a technical engineer to actually understand it well enough. And then we've even now got animations that you can bring in. So this twin motion model with Revisto allows you to start doing building sequences, which allows you to either explain to stakeholders like ministers or whatever, or explain to technical people. Here we just relocated the pedestrian walkway at Roma Street Station, and this is just basically a model that shows the build of that transition and how it's actually going to go about, so we could explain to people what was actually going to happen. There's something like 40,000 to 50,000 people move through that space in a day, so it's pretty important to get it right. What else have we used it for? Well, we've used BIM in this environment. This is one of our contractors have come up with this sort of augmented reality where you can actually stand in a particular place with an iPad. You can either use X-ray vision and see the services, move up and see the building as it is at the moment, as it will be done through different phases, and then what the final product will look like. Similarly, this is our tunnel. So when the tunnel boring machine was going through, we had the model itself. Each one of those tunnel segments, so there's about 24,000 tunnel segments. Each one of them is unique. They're all barcoded and separate. So if you needed to find a particular tunnel segment, you'd be able to look it up exactly where it is. But what was cool with this is when the model when the TBM was going through and placing the segments, and the TBM telemetry was being fed straight back into the Viz model, into the digital model, which was then updating it so that the as constructed is exactly as is placed. So you know exactly which segments are where, what the alignment is, even if it's out by 5 millimeters from the original model, but it's actually updated it in that sort of segment as you go forward. Here's another one. This is a stabling yard that we opened earlier this year. And you can sort of see the bit on the left is completed, the bit on the right is still under construction. If we then apply it here, sorry about this, is a little bit jerky because of the size of the file, but this is the virtual version that was built before the actual version at the end of the day. And you can go in, have a look at all the various components, and they've all got their IDs attached to each one of them. So we now have a situation where we actually have a digital twin of that particular stabling yard. So you don't have to wait till the end of the job. We've actually got these assets get handed, as in the physical asset as well as the digital asset, get handed over to the operator, being Queensland Rail. They can now choose to use it as part of their maintenance schedule and start to use that as part of their modelling. All of what's not shown here is all of the drainage services, all of the power conduits, all of the overheads, as well as the below ground signalling and so forth. All of that is included in this model. So that's the BIM side. Let's go and have a look at GIS. Now GIS is kind of like the most boring Google Maps, if you like. It's a GIS web map of our project, and instead of looking at where the cafes and so forth are, you can actually look at where all the different pieces of infrastructure are located. And you can see on the left-hand side there's a menu there where you can actually turn things on and off. What that allows us to do is do a 3D data set within a 2D environment. So depending on what is the right way in which you want to present the content, because a lot of stuff to do with land acquisition is really more suited to a 2D environment, but you can add attributes to particular locations. For example, this one's showing how deep the tunnel is actually below the surface of that block of land. So that influences when we do the volumetric survey and how much we're going to offer for compensation. You can then overlay LiDAR and photogrammetry over top of that. Again, nothing new or unusual about this, but you're starting to build up this layer into this common data environment. Then you move to a stage where you can actually merge your BIM with your CAD and your photogrammetry, and you can start to get to a stage where your BIM is actually poking up through the landscape. Now, the sort of Salvador Dali looking buses and trees and so forth, that's one bit that is being worked on. And I understand I'm not just techo in this area, but I understand there's some agreements have happened with Google and others, which will start to make all of this stuff more freely available. But I guess the point with this is you can start to very quickly drop your BIM into your landscape and start to experiment where things are located. Then you can start to work out, well, do I want to use this content for whatever purpose? So here's a couple of different examples. I won't go through each one of them, but you can use the 3D, the BIM, or whichever way you want to do it. We did some volumetric compulsory acquisitions. So the ability to knock out a volumetric block in 3 dimensions and then put that in as part of our application for compulsory acquisition was far more simpler being able to do this. You can just pump it out pretty straightforward. Also works for stakeholder engagement. I'm going to skip into the system side of things, the geospatial. This is one we probably haven't explored a great deal, but it's one that we sort of dabbled a little bit with. And this is where you use a device which captures data in real time and it goes straight to the model, and you've got the ability to monitor that. What we did do, and you can sort of see here, and if you look closely, you can see a couple of little pink squares there. That's the noise and dust monitors that are on our construction site. And what that was doing was feeding that content back into the model itself. So you're actually putting the data in real time. We never really got to the stage where we've been using that. So I won't sort of pretend that this is one, but it's one area there where you could start to use geospatial with your BIM and your real-time data to be more as part of your sort of system, if you like. But really the long-term use of this sort of system side of things is how you use it to get into that 7D world, which is the future operations of the system. So this gets to the funky stuff, okay? The Viz model, the gaming engine bit. And I guess before I start on this, when we went to market and we specified what it is that we wanted, before we'd gone to market, we'd got those contractors together to provide it to us as far as how we were going to develop this model. The reason we did that is we wanted to tease it out because we needed to know what we were going to specify into the contracts. So what we did is we used our concept model, so not the final one's going to be built, but the one that we went to market with, and got them to actually build the concept model within the model. So we built up all of the characteristics of that. We knew it wasn't going to be the final one, but it created the environment in which we were able to actually have this sort of documented version of it, so that when the final successful bidder, we had 3 bidding entities, when the final successful bidder was brought in and we were able to drop their model into it. We were actually also be able to do it a little bit early because we used it for some of the tender evaluation process. So this sort of gives you a bit of an idea. We had the virtual underground created, the future stations on the surface, what we're looking to do. We make it sort of interactive and immersive so you can actually get into there, and then you can also navigate it around. And I'll go through each one of those in a little bit more detail. But when you look at what that image is there that's in front of you, and I want you to have in the back of your mind that everything I show you is part of that federated model, okay? It's not like we've created these animations specifically as part of an architectural thing or for a stakeholder thing. They're all actually using the same model. So what you also do by threading our model through the environment, you end up creating a virtual, Brisbane in our case, where the buildings have to be picked up because you're doing that as part of your model because it's got to have context. So what we've done is actually created an inner city space where we're picking up stuff that is actually being done by other projects in the location. We're actually able to pick up their environment. I'll talk about that in a sec too. So this gives you a bit of an idea. That building that's there is the Brisbane Transit Centre. It no longer exists. It got demolished in 2020, and this is what the visualisation of the new Roma Street station will look like. So sort of, as you can see there, it starts to get a bit cool, and then you can go below ground and see what's below ground. I just remind you, this is all in the model, okay? So none of this is just created purely for animation. This is actually straight out of the model. So it allows you to take any number of stakeholders, whether it's ministers, community, but also in dealing with our contractors, what's the spatial feeling? What does the escalators look like? How do they look like when you come into the station? What's the feel? What's the design? Where does the architectural finish fit in? You can also then use it for animated overlays, and we use this as part of a media announcement where you can do basically this reality to render type situation where you can move between what's actually there, fly a drone through, and then overlay it into the environment. The coordinates of the drone just basically get fed into the model, and then you can just blend backwards and forward whichever way you want to go. And then what you've got, and if you look down the bottom right-hand corner, that's one of our blokes. He's got a drone pilot's license, and he's using an Xbox controller to fly around the model. I mean, I would have had him here, but we probably would have made the lights of Christchurch dip when we turn the animation on, because it does chew up a lot of juice. But the bottom line is, you can go anywhere you want. So what he's doing there is just basically flying around in the station, and you can go do whatever you want. Or if you look up in the top right-hand corner, you can use VR. So you've got the same model, same technology, same approach, but you can do it as a first-person VR experience. So you can move around and sort of take it. So we take this to community events, to experiences where we're wanting to try and get people to get sort of closer to understanding what's going on, but also if people who are impacted as well, they can actually say, okay, I've got this. And it's been a pretty valuable tool in that regard. Then on top of that, what we've done is taken the same content and then put it into what we call a reality theatre, which is basically merged reality or a shared reality. So you can stand in this, it's got 5 cameras, and you can stand in this room that we've created, which basically projects on the side, and you can go into that space and actually talk about different bits and components or take people on the journey with you. Then we've started to move through to practical applications. And the type of practical applications we're looking at is things like you can supplement it with supers on them, so you can actually use this type of thing where it really sort of jumps out of the page. You can use it for media type activities, but you can also use it for internal communications between contractors. We've got several contractors doing different parts. What we're seeing here is the final product where you can actually bring the whole lot together and actually show people what it's going to look like. And then this is another one where at Dutton Park, which is a surface station, quite contentious because it's right in a cutting. There's some adjacent landholders who are a bit concerned about, well, what's the final one look like? Again, you've got a bit of Salvador Dali housing going on here. That house isn't flat. It just hasn't been picked up in the model. But what you can see is the bit that we've created is clear as a bell, and it allows you to take people, this is what the end of your street's going to look like, right down to the chain mesh fence, the sound walls. What is that sort of section going to be used for? There's a detention basin there, plus a track that takes maintenance vehicles into the rail corridor to get in there. What they're nervous about is how much noise is going to come from the railway station. But when you see it in this environment, the railway station is quite sunk down into the sort of the cutting. So the ability for light spill and noise and so forth coming up their street is much less. But you can describe that and they'll look at you in the eye and go, look, we don't really believe you. Show it and they actually go, okay, I get it. I understand now. And then this is another one, and I guess the thing I point out with this is we've now built this capacity and we actually do this stuff in-house. So this bridge that we've got, which has actually been stood up now, those wire stays are in place. Basically up to where that lift is, we've installed, and the rest of the ramp is about to be installed now. But this model of it, within the model, was actually created by in-house. And we've got 6 people, from senior people, across the IT space down to people who specialised in this, and their ability to get in and actually create this has become easier and easier with time as the content gets more and more. Then we get to pedestrian eye view, and then, as you can see, the quality has evolved over time, and I'll talk about that in a little while. But what you've got here is the ability to walk down the street. What's it going to look like? And we've got, at the moment, one of the bicycle user groups are sort of challenging us and saying, well, hang on a minute, what's it going to be like for someone who's riding a bike through there? Are they going to crash into pedestrians? Are pedestrians going to ignore them? How's all that interface going to happen? We've now got a model that we can actually take people down the street. Where do you want to go? Well, let's see the view from this particular point, or let's see it from this particular point. Where are people going to be coming out of the railway station? Where are you going to have potential clashes and so forth? So there's ways in which it can be used to just give people a really good understanding of what the final product's going to look like. And then on top of that, what we did was an advertising campaign, this is about a year or so ago, where we actually got real people in green screen, but with the backdrop behind them is actually the model itself. So again, it's all out of the one single federated model. And then it allows you to do things like this, the grand design moments, where you can drop stuff in and create funky animations. I don't know how they do it. By the way, if anybody wants to ask me technical questions about it, I'll just give you Russ's email address, okay? Because I don't know how they do it, but I just know, the product at the end of the day is outstanding. It allows us to get an awful lot of things done, and the versatility. And then one thing that we've also done is, there's a bloke that I knew, that I know, Brett Levy, Indigenous guy, and what he did is he'd created a virtual Brisbane, but prior to settlement. So this is Albert Street in 1819. We've basically mapped the whole of Brisbane in a pre-settlement, and so you can move between those time frames. You can move between what it is now. We've got a partnership with the Queensland Museum, so we've got some heritage stuff, but we also have the ability to go into the full model, and we've got an experience centre where you can actually move between those different spaces. Didn't include it in here, but there's places where there's ceremonies. He's actually got ancestors of the people who used to live in the local area and put the ping pong balls on them and gone down and recorded them doing dancing and things like that, and then actually inserted them into the model. The foliage, the trees, the weather, everything is true to the local environment as captured in the past. So the other thing that we're using it for is art installations. So we've just, and this is a bit of a sneaky peek preview, we've just settled on some of our art installations, Indigenous artists across the whole of the network, and the best way to depict these large-scale art is through using it in the model. So we can insert it into the model, and I've given some briefings to politicians and to board members and so forth around this, and it gives them the feeling of the scale and the impact of what that's going to look like. Other versions of what we're doing is things like drivers and guard training. So this is a beta version where basically goes through the cycle of what it looks like to be in a driver's view, platform screen doors opening, platform screen doors. We don't have platform screen doors in our system, and so a lot of the drivers are sort of going, well, what's all this about? What does this mean? How do I know what's going to happen? When do I do this or whatever? And so the signalling comes into it. The trains are automatic when they come into the tunnel. They have automatic train operations, train stops. So the drivers and the guards are going, well, how's this going to change the way in which we do our business? But one thing that doesn't change is you get a sketchy dude looking to get on the train there. So, right. The other thing that we're using it for is, this is one that we did for fire and emergency services. So one big thing when you do an underground station is to get the fire and safety sign off. Okay. Now, like I said, we don't have underground stations. So the fire service are coming to us and going, actually, we're going to have to sign this off, but we don't know what it actually looks like. So I've been meeting with the fire commissioner and running him through what it's all about, showing stuff. And one thing he said was, look, it'd be great if we could get a bit of an animation of what that would look like. So this is basically the route that the fire department would take if there was a fire in the station and they had to come through one of the back of house fire entry doors to get down onto the platform level. I cut out a bit of a section in the middle, but essentially, it allows them to follow through the route. And like I said, with an Xbox controller, initially you can walk them down, then they can control themselves and we can take it to the next level. Okay, and so what you would have seen here is we've built the model up. This is one of the earlier versions of it, okay? You can sort of see it's good, but it's a little bit cartoony. Then now we've brought this next level of detail, which has brought the architectural finishes, the different colours, the way in which it's actually going to look like, right down to the parquetry, the wayfinding, braille trails, things like that. All of that's now installed into it. And I guess the next step is to take it to this next UE5 model, which basically zhuzhes the whole thing up to the next level. And you've got something which essentially is the finished product and allows you to look at all of the different finishes and work it out if there's something needs to be tweaked or changed before it actually gets installed. So what's next? We'll go back to our pump handle. All right, have a look at this pump handle. They're already getting installed. Now that's a bit of a play. It's not actually the same pump handle, but it's one that's actually out of the ventilation at the top, but I just thought I'd use it for illustrative purposes. But essentially we're getting to the stage now where the installation of the equipment, which is in the 3D model, is now turning up, and we can actually start, you can go and identify the item by its digital location as well. The other thing is, by using this UE5 model, we now have the quality that we can take out there. So this is what the finished product will look like. And as you can see, it's like next level gaming quality. What it also allows us to do is see what the urban environment's going to look like. And then adjacent to us is actually a development site, which Queensland Investment Corporation, so if you look off to the left here, see that building there? That's actually their design that's been put into that block of land, and we can start to see the association between what their development's going to look like and how it interrelates with our station. You can see the awning on the station's quite large. This is Brisbane, subtropical, you need shade and also protection from rain because we get thunderstorms in summer. So the whole idea, and then we've had sort of pushback, different council planners have sort of said, well, you know, that's an encroachment into the space. And we're going, well, let's actually see how it fits with the adjacency. And then when you see it like this, you go, yeah, it actually just, it works well. And the next level, this is one we're just about to start on. So if you go along, this is a bit sort of sketchy on the rail corridor. We can turn on the station. So this is back at that Dutton Park station I talked about. You can turn on the station, go through and take a driver's eye view of it. But really, this isn't to the level of detail that we're looking for. What we're actually looking to do is take it to the absolute next level. So when we go and start changing signals, when we start changing the way in which things are being done from a driver perspective, and I want to thank WSP for letting me use this, but essentially you're in a position where you're putting all of the assets, all of the signalling, all of the rail through to where the crossovers are, everything is in that space, so you can actually do the preparation. Now, the hardest thing with rail approvals is you've got to go through an acceptance process, an assurance process, and a safety case. My vision with this is how do we get them to the people who are going to do the sign-off to have done it 10, 15, 20 times beforehand, and then while it's all being built, but they've seen the virtual version of it, and then when they turn up to approve it, they've already seen it because it's exactly the same as what they're seeing in the model is what they see in real life. And so it takes down that barrier to yes, okay? And this is what can add months to approval of a rail project, getting that safety case signed off. So we're nearly there. I guess the whole idea, and this is a lift of another image, but I think my animated guys like the image on the left, makes it look a bit like the Matrix or something. But what we're trying to do is look at, well, how do we start turning this? The next frontier is how do we turn it into smart stations where you can use the model to actually be part of your systems and the way in which you manage your stations and the way in which you operate them. But we're also using it outside of the Cross River Rail project because we've got this model. The Olympic Games, as you know, is coming to Brisbane in 2032. So we're already being asked to produce the Gabba rebuild stadium there, which is being used in the public domain for announcements already. We're being used to do the development which is adjacent to our Roma Street station, which is the Brisbane Live Arena, which is what's going to be they're talking about temporary indoor swimming pool and then also a range of other things. When we did this animation, this was before the Olympics was announced, so bear with us because it actually shows a basketball court inside there as well too. But you can sort of see it creates, you get this spatial awareness of where do these things fit in, how do they fit into the city, what's it look like, and it just makes it a lot easier for people to say, yes, this is a really good idea. And then finally, we're asked to actually create, this is up in Cairns, so people who know Cairns, it's 2.5 hours flight north of Brisbane. still in Queensland though, and this is at a athletics track that's going to be used for the soccer during the Olympics, and it's creating an animation. I guess the affinity I have there is my daughter ran for states athletics there in a few years back, so I've got a bit of a personal affinity there. But what it does is means we can use the same technology with very limited effort. As long as we've got the photogrammetry and we've got the model in, someone's given us the design model, we can drop it into space because we've already got the basics that we need to do, and this was done in-house. So that's our model. Hopefully I kept you stimulated, and hopefully you're pleased you didn't go and listen to the mayors. And you found this a little bit interesting, but it's been a journey, it's been a passion project for myself, and I think probably that's the key message is, and that's why I was keen to give this presentation, because you need to own it as the CEO. You need to be the one who drives it. These things come with a bit of a cost by comparison, to a government department environment. They can't afford to do it, but in the context of a multi-billion-dollar project, this is actually a pretty minor investment. And then if you can get the contractors to do all the heavy lifting as far as gathering the ones and zeros, and then what you do is curate it in a space that can be used, it actually be surprising how much you can do with such little amount of effort. So thank you very much. I think I'm available to take questions if anybody's got one. I'll just grab a glass of water.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Graham, for such a fabulous presentation. Let's come over to the wee bar section over here for a few questions. And firstly, I'm so impressed that you got through, 66 slides in less than 40 minutes. If your presentation skills are as efficient as the digital twin, I think this project will thrive well and truly.
Thank you.
So we've just got a few questions from the audience. How did the project come to terms with the cost of digital twins?
Yep.
Did it take a lot of persuasion to get it across the line?
Well, I guess, I answered that sort of right at the end. It was a passion project from myself. I've been involved in infrastructure projects for a long time. I have a background in, running the infrastructure department, and I saw the policy environment where you sort of got the infrastructure department and the natural resources department sort of almost competing as to who runs digital twins and BIM and so forth. And I just said, bugger it, let's just do it as a working model. And what ended up happening is we've actually, through our model, have driven the policy. So like I said, I used to run the infrastructure department, so I kind of get policy, and what I did was use the scale. And I can't remember how much we spent on this, but let's say it was a couple of $1 million. By comparison to a $7 billion infrastructure project, very minor. But if you think, if it saves us 2-3 months, and it would have saved us a lot more than that, but let's say 2-3 months, at X million dollars per day on delay claims, it's already paid for itself. So, I think it's a pretty simple equation, to be honest. Trying to do it from inside a government department, really difficult. Doing it from within a project, much easier.
Fabulous. It sounds like you've really set precedents for not only just Australia, but also here in New Zealand as well. When I think of digital, I often start to get quite overwhelmed with the massive information that's out there. How did you sort of take a step back and start to be more intentional with the way that you collect data?
Yeah, look, as I said at the start, I'm not the technical person. All I did was have the vision and what I wanted it to be used for. So by being focused on what it is, the desirable outcome that we wanted, but then what I did was I got my comms and media guy who was used to sort of 3D animation type stuff, and my technical sort of BIM guy, and actually got them together. They're like oil and water. Put them together and said, you guys, I want you to play nicely together, and I want this as the outcome to achieve, and I'm prepared to give you some money to do it, but the answer is not no. You need to find a way. They then got engaged in it, and they were actually really enabled. And I guess giving them the latitude to succeed, and then getting them to feel like it's part of their what they're actually doing, and they're ultra proud of it. They're really proud of it, and giving them that, I suppose, that latitude, but setting the objectives. The stuff around the driver guard animation, the new stuff that we're talking about on the railway. Literally last week, I was speaking with Queensland Rail, saying this is what I want to do because I want to try and carve. If I can carve 3 to 6 months out of the approval process, it'll be a great outcome. Would you always want to come with us on the journey? And Queensland Rail said, yeah, absolutely. So I'm sort of constantly looking for strategic outcomes that I want, but having that sort of federated model makes it really easy.
Oh, that's absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much, Graham. Let's give him a round of applause.